I'm currently on a cruise and staying in an inside cabin with a quirky feature. The cabin is located right in the middle of deck 11 without any access to daylight or the outside world. I've spent most of this week trying to work out if it was worth the money or if I should have paid more for an upgrade. Usually when you look at inside cabins, they're almost always identical regardless of the ship or the location. An inside cabin is pretty much 2 beds, a desk and a bathroom in the corner. Some may be 30 centimeters wider, they might have an extra chair, but that's about it. The cabins are made pre-formed like this in the factory, so there isn't really much that can vary between cabins. Or so I thought. My current cabin doesn't follow this norm at all. The cruise line I'm currently sailing on is P&O, and I'm on board a ship called Aurora. She was built in the year 2000 and not much has changed since then. I did wonder if the ship being this old might cause us any issues, but I decided to book a very short weekend cruise with my friends. I figured a short cruise would be a great way to try it without risking too much time or money. I didn't really pay a lot for this cruise though, but more about that later. When I was looking at the deck plans, I came across this. This is cabin A297. Compared to all the other inside cabins, it looked quite a bit bigger and it also looked square in shape. It was right above the ladies' toilets and I was very curious as to why it was different from all the other rooms. I didn't know if this extra space would really benefit us. The traditional cruise ship inside cabin design works very well, so I did wonder if this would be an awkward one that was actually worse. Maybe they added this on later or they converted something else to be a cabin. I had no idea. It was an extra £50, which is $63 to be able to pick my specific cabin location, and because I had seen this quirky cabin, I decided to pay the extra to give it a go. It isn't something I normally pay for, but I hoped that it would be worth it. Aurora actually has 279 inside cabins, ranging from 137 to 181 square feet. I do find it hard to imagine those sizes, but according to storage calculators, that's somewhere between a single garage and a double garage, which sounds about right. I hope that I would be there happily staying in my double garage while everyone else was enjoying their single regular cabins. There were reviews of this cabin that said that it was very shabby, and one even said that it reminded them of a worn down ferry. At the same time though, there were reviews that said that it was a small cozy cabin and comfortable and very clean. One of the main downsides of inside cabins is the lack of natural light, and I knew that even if my cabin was bigger than usual, it would not solve that problem. I was sharing the room with my mum, so I hoped that we would have enough space for all of our stuff. I hoped that we would have enough space to charge things, and I, as always, was hoping that we would have a quiet location. I would get most of those things, but not all of them. Embarkation was very easy, and when we boarded the ship, our cabins were already ready. We actually embarked this cruise later than planned due to them doing some deep cleaning because of an illness outbreak on the trip before this one. Heading along the corridor, we found our cabin with our cruise cards waiting for us outside the room. If you buy anything on the ship, this is what you charge it to, and it's also what you use to get on and off the ship. It was here that I bumped into my friend who was also on this cruise and staying in a cabin diagonally opposite me. I had no idea that he would be on this cruise at all, let alone that he would be on my corridor. It was quite a coincidence. It was a nice surprise considering that the ship has over 900 cabins and thousands of guests. The chances weren't very high. He offered that we could have a look around his room, which was a balcony cabin, so we of course jumped at the chance. His room felt spacious and bright, the decor was definitely dated, but nothing was worn or damaged, which I always think is the main thing. The balcony is what I would usually call a protected balcony, and my friend said that we could watch sailouts from here if we wanted to, which was lovely. We did do that later in the cruise. The real surprise in the cabin, which I definitely would not find in my room, was that this cabin actually had a little bath. It was tiny. I suppose the idea is that it's meant to be for children, but Aurora is an adult-only cruise ship, and I'm an adult who likes bath, so I would have loved this feature. I did have a very small bath on a cruise once when I cruised on Fred Olsen's Belletta. We cruised into the Arctic Circle in winter and the weather was very rough. I spent a lot of time sat in this bath just because it was the only place where I didn't feel unwell at times. Not great cruise bath memories, but still, it is my dream to have a bath on a cruise. I hope that my cabin would be as nice as this one, just without that balcony part of course. I also didn't think that we would have this seating area here because inside cabins usually usually are smaller, but apart from that, I was expecting it to be pretty similar. After a quick look around the corridor, we headed to my room. I really didn't know what to expect because the pictures on the website were of just a standard inside cabin, but I was not prepared for this layout. The cabin felt huge. It felt absolutely massive. It was probably the same size as the balcony cabin that I'd just come from, but that isn't normal on most cruise ships. Normally inside cabins are quite a bit smaller. The first thing that hit me was that the beds were facing into the cabin and away from the door. I don't think I've ever had a cabin like that before, and I wasn't sure if it would feel weird sleeping with my head right by the entrance. I wondered why they had made this choice, but it did make more sense when I started to have a look around. All looked fairly normal on the right hand side of the cabin. We had 2 beds made up as twins, a couple of bedside tables and a massive wardrobe. Next to that was a desk, and so far, so normal. What wasn't normal though was that we had a really random extra square of space with a sofa and a kettle. It was basically like having our own tiny lounge in the room, and there was so much floor space in front of it. At this point, I was really wondering why they did this. I wasn't sure that this extra space would be useful for anything, and space is of a premium on cruise ships. I didn't think that they would just make this cabin bigger for no reason. It was almost like this was an accessible cabin, but it definitely wasn't. Accessible cabins usually have wider doors and the bathroom is on the same level, which was not the case here. The idea being that in an accessible cabin you can move around with a wheelchair or a Zimmer frame. Your Britishism of the week is the phrase Zimmer frame. This is probably what you would know as a walker if you're not from the UK, and it's one of those situations where a company called Zimmer started making these frames, the name just stuck, and that's what I've always called it, a Zimmer frame. Heading into the bathroom, I was met by a wall of pink, and not just pink, but sparkly pink. I saw the dreaded shower curtain, but other than that, the bathroom looked pretty nice. I've definitely been in smaller cruise ship bathrooms in the past, and I like the look of the sink and the counter space. I know there are a lot of people who really hate shower curtains, but it honestly doesn't bother me too much. My bed was actually only a meter or so from the bathroom, which suited me fine. I was happy to see that the beds were made up as twins when we arrived, as often I'll find a double bed even though I've requested 2. This can almost always be changed on board if you ask your cabin steward, but I do wish that the cruise line took more notice of pre-cruise requests, because the last thing I want to do is to make more work for the cabin stewards, especially if I've already told the cruise line, don't make extra work. It wasn't too long after this that our suitcases arrived. On a cruise you put your luggage tag on your bag and you drop it off in the terminal. It's then taken to your room, and on a ship like this, which is actually considered pretty small, they're probably moving around 3,000 bags. On a really big cruise ship they could be moving 8,000 or even more, which is crazy to think about. I've never had a cruise line lose my luggage, but the airline did recently when I flew back from Venice. Thankfully I had an air tag in my suitcase, so I was able to see that my bag was still in Italy and I didn't wait around forever. We were only on this cruise for 3 days, so we had more than enough storage space for clothes. Aurora has completed multiple world cruises, and that means that guests have been on board for months at a time. Somewhere out there in the world there is a person or people who have stayed in this room for 3 months, and honestly with this amount of storage space I would be totally fine with that. I would probably miss the sun and daylight after 3 months, but you know. Our cruise just went to Bruges and back, and that is a very common short cruise itinerary. Way back in 2017, I designed and printed a massive magnetic map of Europe that I stuck on my fridge, and I used it to track a very similar cruise that I took. The map honestly was quite annoying. The pieces kept falling off, the name tags were really small, but I loved it, and when people came round it would always start conversations about my cruise. I actually did sell some of these for a while, so some of you watching may have one of these, but I did stop because it was definitely not my special talent. Fast forward to 2023 and I met 2 guys, Matt and Will, who've launched a company called the Cruise Maps. You might have seen the maps in the backgrounds of my videos over the last year or so because I just love them. I think they're fantastic. They're created using the real satellite data from your cruise, so this is the actual route that the ship took. Over the years, I've had so many ideas for things I like in the cruise industry. We are missing out on so much, but I've never really known how to make my ideas a reality. I work for myself. I don't have a big group of people here who can help me with things. I'm very much making it up as I go, but I don't have a shortage of ideas. That's never been a problem. I'm very excited to say I'm now officially a co-founder of the Cruise Maps, as I think I've found the perfect team to help me bring our ideas to life. Our plans go so far beyond physical products, and you are going to love it. Whenever whenever the team show me a mock-up, I'm just so proud and I'm so excited. I can't share too much yet, but I'm absolutely going to want your thoughts and opinions on everything. To celebrate, we are launching a very limited run of the Captain Hudson branded maps. Make sure you check those out on the link below and use code EmmaCruises for a discount. These won't be around forever, and I think the Captain Hudson looks pretty snazzy here. I think this suits him. The artwork that was in my cabin actually looked more like a potato waffle. Let me know if you can see that, but it was okay. There was a good mix of shelves and hanging space and more storage than I have at home, that's for sure. There was a mini bar, a safe, and a TV which was way up high. When we embarked the cruise, this was playing the safety drill video, and that was the only time that we watched the TV. We put our suitcases into the bottom of the wardrobe, but they would have fit under the bed too. It wasn't until we went to bed that we realised that there was only one plug socket in the entire cabin. On modern cruise ships, it isn't uncommon to find 4 or 6 or 8 sockets plus USBs, but way back in the year 2000, there just wasn't the same demand for that. Luckily, I had bought my adapter, which allows me to plug multiple things into it, so both me and my mum could charge our stuff at the same time. I did look around to see if there were any other plug sockets, because sometimes there are some where the kettle goes, or maybe behind the TV. The kettle was hardwired in though. There was one behind the TV, but it was way up on the ceiling, so I'd have to probably climb up on a chair and then sort of dangle down, maybe rest my phone on top of the TV. It didn't seem ideal. I did also need to plug in my daylight alarm clock that I used to simulate the sunrise. It helps with the total darkness of inside cabins because you really can't tell if it's 3 AM or 3 PM when you wake up in a room like this. The kettle though was a great addition and it came in handy. Cruising with my mum, she likes to drink a lot of tea, so we did have a couple of cups every day. Tea is also available in the buffet anytime for free. It's pretty rare to get a kettle on an American cruise line unless that ship is sailing out of the UK, but on the British cruise lines like P&O, it is standard. There would be outcry if P&O tried to remove their kettles. There were a few biscuits here and we would only get 1 packet every day. On my past P&O cruises, we've always had 2 packets, 1 for each person in the cabin, so I guess that is evidence of cost cutting. I know they have to cut costs, but honestly I would prefer them to do it in another way rather than taking away my biscuits. That one hurts. Our room was cleaned once a day every day. Traditionally on cruises, the cabin is cleaned twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, but one time suited me perfectly. I really don't make that much mess, and if I do, I'm more than happy to tidy it up. Despite our location by the stairs, we never heard anybody walking up or down the corridor. We didn't hear any of our neighbours at any point either, and I got used to sleeping so close to the door. I could see myself in the mirror while I was in bed, which was a bit odd, but the bed itself was very comfortable. The air conditioning worked very well and I slept fantastically here. I did wonder if I might feel more movement given that I was sleeping facing into the ship rather than forward and backward, which is more normal. We really didn't have good weather on this cruise, but I'm happy to say I never noticed any motion at all. Our cabin was perfectly calm and still and comfortable. We did use this extra space when we gave our friends a tour of the room, but most of the time if we were in the cabin we would just be sat on the beds anyway. For getting changed, this extra space was useful, and I'm glad we did pick this cabin. I feel as though the value of this extra space would only increase if you were doing a longer cruise, but even still, I would book this quirky cabin again. The advertised price for this cruise for the lowest cruise fare was £299, which is $380 US. That is what I would ordinarily book. I paid the extra £50 to pick my room, bringing my total to £349, $433. That is for the 3-day cruise, including all tips, entertainment and food. That is based on 2 people sharing an inside cabin, and we both paid that price. My friends who were staying in the standard balcony cabin paid £499 each, so let me know if you think the upgrade is worth £200 each for 3 days. If you don't think it's worth the upgrade, one thing that you could consider is an inside cabin with a massive TV screen showing you what is on the outside. It might not sound real, but I promise you it is, and I tried it recently. There were some downsides I haven't ever considered and some pros that I really liked. Watch this video next to find out if it is just a gimmick or if it is actually genius. See you there.